Good morning, students. Today we are going to read the lecture number 7 on the topic of the short questions in the subject of history O levels. So actually we are covering the short questions which are important in the subject of the history. So this is the lecture number 7. So concentrate yourself. We are going to start. The first question for today is, what was Hindu Mahasabha? Hindu Mahasabha was formed in 1923 by Pandit Mohan Malaviya, a congressman. It contested its first election in 1926. The party made progress when V.D. Savarkar became president. In 1947, the party condemned the partition settlements as a national disorder and believed that Gandhi's religious tolerance was a threat to the Hindu purity. So actually, he was a rigid Hindu, which was working on the behalf of the Hindus and were trying to suppress the Muslims. The next important question for today is, what was the non-cooperation movement? The non-cooperation movement was started by Gandhi. It began in 1921, 1930, and 1932. British cloth was burnt in huge amounts. Production of the hand-spun and hand-woven Indian cloth was encouraged. Teachers and students left English colleges and schools and set up their own institutions. Many lawyers gave up their practices as part of the boycott of the English legal system. So actually they were Hindus who were trying to hit the British economy, and they were successful in doing so. The next important question for today is, what was civil disobedience movement? Civil disobedience was movement led by Gandhi. It started in 1930. Its ideologies were divided in three phases. At first, the moderates would dominate the political scenario. Second was the prominence of the extremist ideologies. And third was Indian nationalism. So this was led by the Gandhi and was a successful movement which thread the Indian interest in the subcontinent. The next important question for today is, what was the Chauri Chaura incident? Chauri Chaura was a town near Gorkhapur, UP, that is called Uttar Pradesh in India. That is a province, and this is an important city. The Chauri Chaura incident took place in February 1922. A police station was set on fire by angry citizens. 23 policemen were killed. It led to the call of non-cooperation movement, which was a threat to the British during the Khilafat movement. The next important question for today is, what was the Mopla Rebellion? Mopla Rebellion was an anti-feudal and anti-imperialist uprising of the Moplas. Moplas are actually a minority in the subcontinent, in the now Indian held area. The Muslim population of the Malabar district in Madras. It took place in 1921. The rebellion began after British colonial troops attacked a large gathering of the believers in a mosque in the small town of Tirurangadi on August 20. The rebels seized railroads, cut telegraph lines, and paralyzed the British administration. The Mopla rebellion was also directed against the local Hindu landlords who fled their estates. Hindu tenant farmers fought alongside the Moplas because the tenant Hindu farmers were also suppressed by the upper caste of the Hindus. It was crushed by the British. The next important question that we are going to read today is, how did the Congress ministries deal with the Muslim religion? After the 1937 elections, the Congress proved to be a pure Hindu party and worked during its reign only for the betterment of the Hindus. The Congress made it an aim to undermine the Muslims. Cow slaughter was banned. So look at their working at that time now. Cow slaughter was banned. Children of all religions were forced to bow in front of the Gandhi's portrait. Muslims were not allowed to construct new mosques. Bande Matram, an anti-Muslim song, was made the national anthem. Hindus would play drums in front of the mosque when Muslims were praying. Pigs and dogs were thrown inside the mosque. So these were the works, these were the actions which were taken by the Hindus after their success in the 1937 elections. The next important question in the lecture is, what was the day of the deliverance? So actually this is the day which was celebrated by the Muslims at the end of the Hindu ministries after the election of the 1937. So the day of the deliverance was celebrated on the 22nd of the December 1939. On this day, Congress members had resigned from the government. The Muslim League called this day the Day of the Deliverance to celebrate the end of the oppression and the injustice of the Congress rule that lasted from 1937 to 1939. This offended the Congress. The next important question in the lecture is, what was the Pakistan Resolution? The Pakistan Resolution was moved by Maulvi Fazlul Haq on 22nd March. It was introduced on 23rd March 1940. It said that regions in which Muslims were numerically in majority should be grouped to constitute independent states, which should be autonomous and sovereign. The resolution was passed unanimously and soon became known as the Lahore Resolution. An address was given by Jinnah in Minto Park, Lahore. So this was the speeding up point after which the independence was gained. The next important question in the lecture is, what was Cripps mission plan? In March 1942, the British sent Sir Stafford Cripps to India. The purpose of this was to gain support for the British war efforts because the Second World War was going to be started and the British wanted the Indian support. The Cripps proposed that after the war, an Indian Union would be set up with Dominion. So look at this. The British are promising that the rights and the promises will be fulfilled after the war. But the Indians wanted the promises to be filled before the war because they were not believing the British. After the war, our Constituent Assembly should frame a new constitution. Elections for Constituent Assembly would be held immediately after the war. The Indian did not accept the plan. The next important question in the lecture is, what was the Quit India movement? Indian Congress Committee passed the Quit India movement, that is resolution. It was started by Gandhi in May 1942. So look at the Cripps mission plans date and the Quit India movement date. So Indians were accelerating their efforts to throw out the British from the subcontinent. So they started Quit India movement led by Gandhi in May 1942. It was passed on 8th August 1942. It called for immediate withdrawal of the British from India. It was a non-violent protest against the British. Muslim League remained aloof because Muslims were not believing the Hindus and the British as well, because Hindus proved to be very fatal for the Muslims, particularly in the Hindu ministries, which lasted from 1937 to 1939. So this was the lecture, students. In this lecture also we read 10 questions in the history O levels. So I hope so this will be much more easier and interesting for you people to understand. So read this lecture again, understand it, learn it, and make your notes. Thank you so much.